Okay, our last presenter is Hannah Zackney. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist and Vinyasa and Kundalini yoga teacher and meditation fanatic specializing in women's issues. She's the creator of Heart Wide Open, which includes women's empowerment workshops and intensive groups. These programs are designed to lead women back home to the deepest part of themselves with a tribe of female support. Hannah believes passionately in the intelligence of the body and that when the body is at peace, it will heal on its own. Her soul talk is called My Sensitivity Is My Power, My Superpower. Please welcome to Sac Soul Talks, Hannah Zackney.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi. All right. So, thank you, RJ and JG, so much for this opportunity. The panel, my parents, my sweet 2 little boys. I have one missing who's at a birthday party. I gave him a pass. And my husband is in training in Denver, and he would be here otherwise. So, I just thank you to this lovely support over here. I mean, just thank you. Really, really, really means a lot. I know this is an investment in your time. I really appreciate it. So I met JG at an event. It was held a couple years ago, and we got to talking after. And he at that time somewhat mentioned and invited me to do a soul talk, and I said I needed to wait until I was a little bit more accomplished, a little bit more success under my belt. And I reached out to him last spring, feeling like it might be a little bit more appropriate timing. And then RJ actually returned my call, and we got to talking, and we scheduled this day. Some time passed, and about a month ago, we checked in to kind of go over the approaching details. And he tells me that the theme for today is mission accomplished. And had I known that, I probably would have waited a few more years, maybe a decade. I thought I was ready. So in no way is my mission accomplished. I have a ton to learn, and I actually think that that is a wonderful thing. I will forever be learning, and yet today I'm happy to share some of what I believe I can squeeze into a mission accomplished category. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, what I'm up to, what I have accomplished, and what that means. I'm a mom of 3 darling boys. Their ages are 11, 12, and 13. I know a lot more about lacrosse and soccer. That's true. It's true. I know a lot more about lacrosse and soccer than I did before they came along. I'm embracing the preteen years, smells and all. I am married to my best friend for 19 years, and I am addicted to self-growth. I've often labeled myself a maximizer. I aim to get the most out of whatever experience comes my way. This can be both good and bad. I love the outdoors. I believe nature grounds and heals. And whenever possible, I choose to be active in my body. I truly understand the world through movement, and therefore I love anything that is in my body. I love to be outside doing paddleboarding, hiking, running, walking. I'm fascinated with what makes people who they are, and I'm really not afraid to ask questions to understand them even further. I believe the more I understand others, that the more I understand myself. For almost the last decade, I've been on a journey to practice, learn, and grow in the mental health field. I'm currently a licensed marriage and family therapist in Folsom, California. I specialize with trauma, working with both individuals and couples. I work with eating disorders, women's issues, and more recently with women's empowerment, all issues that are very near and dear to my heart. I'm a perpetual student, and therefore I'm well-trained. I am a somatic modalities specialist, I specialize in CRM, comprehensive resource modeling, BSP, brain spotting, EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is why we call it EMDR, heart-centered therapy, couples approaches like EFT, emotion-focused therapy, Gottman therapy, and I work with ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, and DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. I continue my training daily. I crave the aha of a synapse in my brain. It's my drug. But mostly, I cherish helping others return back to their true selves. I believe passionately in choice and in the phenomenological connection to our higher selves. I often state that I live by this quote, that the purpose in life is to be happy. This is no simple statement, and this is no easy task. So what am I up to? I suppose I'm up to helping other people find their joy. To continue, I'm going to give you a snapshot as to what was going on for me in about 2001. I left what I had known as my support system to go out of state with my now husband. He was committed to the Marines, so there was really no option for him to come to me. A month before we married, this country experienced 9/11. A month after we married, he was deployed with no given return date. I had no support, no job, no familiarity in my environment, but I had time. I had more time than I wanted, with less support than I required. I walked and did yoga for most of the next year and a half in Encinitas, California. There were days where I did both, twice. Whatever had been difficult in my life before this time came up and plagued my thoughts. Up until now, in this space, my type A personality had been very effective at keeping me distracted from anything that I had needed to deal with before. Now I had endless time to process absolutely everything. A year and a half later, we moved. We moved 4 times to 3 different states in the next 5 years. During these years, I tested out many callings. I had left San Francisco in a high-paying job, and the Marine Corps does not take you to all the most glamorous places, so I had to get creative career-wise. I sold real estate. I really loved that. I dabbled with stock trading. I did network marketing. That was fun, too. I began to teach group exercise, spin, Pilates, mat and reformer Pilates, and a lot of yoga. Yoga became my tool. It became my way to breathe. It became my way to ground my body. It was my way to release all the old stock toxic emotion that had accumulated up until that point. I did a lot of yoga. I taught a lot of yoga. I experienced a lot of yoga. I opened a yoga studio. I then got pregnant. I desperately wanted to be a good parent. I knew that I needed to be as healthy as possible to do so. There was a sense of urgency within me to heal myself. The next 5 years happened in a blink. I had 3 kids in 31 months. My first 2 are 363 days apart. The third is 18 months behind the middle. There were years when I was both pregnant and breastfeeding. I was in survival mode, and anything unrelated to raising babies was really put on hold. I developed a condition called hyperlactation production syndrome, which meant that my body used every bit of nutrients that it didn't use to make the next baby to make mass amounts of milk. This was really great for my kids and for the children who I donated milk to, but it wreaked havoc on my body. No one tells you how isolating it's going to be when you have young children. I had now spent too many years with too little support or socialization. About this time, I found myself really wanting to live with my purpose. I wanted to know what my purpose was. I wanted to feel loved and safe daily. I wanted more than anything to be able to tell anyone how painfully alone and afraid I was. I wanted to share the deepest pains and be accepted and fully loved in return. But there were some things getting in my way. So following the birth of my 3 beautiful children, I had 3 which were all cesareans, by the way. I had 3 invasive foot surgeries. I had 5 surgeries in 6 years. I couldn't walk very well and had 3 kids under 2.5 years at one point. They were all in diapers, which required different feeding and sleeping schedules. My husband was available to me emotionally, but he was now out of the military, and he had taken a job in Alaska where he was gone 3 weeks, home 3 weeks. When he was home, he was naturally exhausted himself, and he was busy taking care of the life, car, house, maintenance things that I couldn't keep up on while he was away. We just moved back to California, which I was very excited to do, to see my friends, but I'd been gone such a long time that many of their calendars were full with things that didn't include me. There were personal things stopping me as well. I was convinced that if anybody really heard my real voice of desperation, that they would pity or reject me. I was ashamed to be in need. I had always been independent and capable, and I didn't want to be perceived in any other way. Then things got worse. My husband, who was supposed to end that insane Alaska schedule, was forced to commit to another year of it. We were in financial strain. The business I had created at that time fell apart because I was too busy taking care of my children. I felt utterly dependent on my husband for my survival, which was a position I promised myself I would not get to, and I had tried really hard to avoid. One day I took inventory of myself. It was noon. I was dumping dark chocolate chips into a jar of peanut butter. The TV was blaring. I had my pajamas on with a glass of wine. And I looked around and realized I had lost my purpose. Something needed to change. So I took one more bite. And then something else happened. I had a full-blown panic attack, which landed me in the ER. I was first insistent that something was gravely wrong with my body. My last attempt to blame my body, my hormones, the multiple surgeries, anything to not take ownership of my issues. But with a stunning health report, I had no choice but to look at an emotional and mental state, my own emotional and mental state for the answers. I realized I couldn't wait on anybody else. I realized it didn't matter if things looked messy. They were. And it was time to be honest about it and everything. So things changed. I began to journal with gratitude versus victimhood. I found a counselor that helped me find my way to become a licensed marriage and family therapist. I went back and enrolled in school. I showed up at grad school. I showed up for my friends. I showed up on my yoga mat. I asked my husband for help with actual words and requests. And I ended up with a new sense of confidence that I could get through anything. I built a vibrant therapy practice. I started teaching yoga once again. The results of digging deep and showing up for myself were far, far, far more amazing than I could have ever imagined. I learned that taking care of myself was literally the best thing that I could do. I also knew my kids needed me to do the work as quickly as I could. I stopped playing small, and I started showing up for me, and I started showing up for them. Much of what I learned in these times brings me to what I believe I have achieved. Aside from raising some amazing children and co-creating a very blessed marriage, I've achieved a true path to return to myself over and over again. For over 10 years, I've been working with clients do the same. I'm now calling this process the Heart Wide Open process. I've realized you can't learn about others without learning about yourself. You can't be generous and compassionate with others without being generous and compassionate with yourself. You can't show up wholeheartedly no matter what and not begin to do the same thing for yourself. Becoming a therapist informed me that I'm a healer of a very deep capacity. Becoming a therapist normalized my sensitivities and allowed me to believe that being sensitive is not an inconvenience, a burden, or a weakness, but rather a gift. My sensitivity is my superpower. Once I was able to acknowledge and appreciate my own fragility, I was able to see and make space for the fragility of others. And while making room for acceptance of all the places I was pained and overwhelmed, I began to acknowledge my strength and give myself credit for all that I am. While witnessing the metamorphosis of clients I admire from such a close proximity, I noticed a few more things, particularly from the women. I noticed how one woman would report that she felt alone, misunderstood, guilty, but she didn't feel like she had the space to do anything about it when from the outside her life seemed so great, or when other people in the world were suffering. I related to that. I had had similar thoughts. I noticed how much of what I was teaching and exploring with one client could be useful to another, to me as well. I noticed that creating a safe and nurturing place for women to heal in a group environment where their experiences could be normalized and they could support one another instead of feeling isolated, competitive, or alone in their experience would be helpful to them and to me. I noticed the power of the divine feminine, which is in all genders, but gravely out of balance in women, was really being stirred up in me and begging for me to pay attention to it. I noticed how often other women find themselves disconnected from themselves because they put career or work or others or spouses or partners or financial obligations in front of them. They pass burnout without awareness, just like I had. I noticed how I personally wanted to share with them what I was figuring out from myself and from the others. I was certain that yoga, specifically Kundalini yoga, meditation, and all of these holistic approaches would help them. I became very determined to find a way to integrate it all, to bring my knowledge of psychology, of wellness, of yoga, and meditation together into a comprehensive, holistic approach. It's clear to me that the mind and body cannot be separated. I didn't feel in personal integrity to keep them separate any longer. My personal life at this point was feeling very disjointed. I was going to one studio to teach Kundalini yoga, another place to teach Vinyasa yoga, another place to do therapy, another place to do trauma work, and I needed to bring it together. I began to talk even more deeply to my clients, especially the women, to the women I admired, to the women that would talk to me, to anyone that would talk to me. I hired a coach to help me make sense of it all. I became really clear on what was working, and I paid attention to that. I could see that the path that I was following was working for myself and it was working for others. I could see it, I could feel it, and it needed to be expanded upon. I wanted to make it more available. I wanted to expand on its value. I couldn't put it together fast enough. I wanted to map out a way to share it, so we got to work. At one point, my coach asked me if I really wanted to name it Heart Wide Open. And I laughed and I said yes. Why? And she said, get ready, words matter. If you name it Heart Wide Open, get ready to crack your own heart wide open. Yes, indeed, we teach what we need to know. I heard her. I got what she meant. I named it Heart Wide Open. I started identifying topics, coping skills, activities, rituals, and such to buoy and support the healing journey. Things like prioritizing yourself, asking for what you need, setting boundaries. I incorporated yoga, meditation, journaling, intimacy, vulnerability, bravery, and conversation, gratitude as a practice, not just a frivolous word, service, sharing your purpose. I believe nobody on this planet has a purpose that isn't meant to be shared in this world. Motivation, celebration. In the past couple years, I've launched and grown and continued to test the process. As others grow with the process, I grow. Therefore, the past year has sharpened my clarity, my truthfulness, and my willingness to be in integrity with myself and my commitment to others. Iron does indeed sharpen iron. As I grow, I realize at times I just want to take the easy route, and I can't. I can't because I am fiercely committed to this journey. I also know that taking the easy route doesn't work. It just derails the path. I believe staying tethered to myself is the same as staying connected to my higher power, my higher self, my higher guide, whatever works in the wording. And when I am so reliant and so close and so tethered to my higher power, I believe I'm a little bit closer to happiness, the kind of happiness that I believe the Dalai Lama is talking about when he says the purpose in life is to be happy. For the past 2 years, my heart has indeed become very open. I've been challenged to show up for ways that I never imagined, for durations of times that seem impossible. I've been forced to give true self-care and self-compassion to myself. I've cried a lot. I've had to forgive where I wanted to win or keep score. I've had to let go of control and trust in a deeper faith, not because I have the strength to, but because there's really no option left. I've felt grief and sadness and betrayal and fear and love and gratitude in ways I haven't before. Each deeply felt emotion is just as overwhelming as the next. I've learned that this life is now, that this moment is right now, that life is now, that this is now, that life is now. I've begun to trust this breath, and this breath, and this breath. My motto has become what's now, what's next, what's now, what's next. And anything beyond that is really none of my business yet. To stay present and to stay tethered to me in these ways, I've relied on the principles of the Heart Wide Open process. I smile deeply in recognition that this really works. I am beyond humbly grateful to share these tools with the brave and inspiring individuals I get the honor of working with and knowing so intimately. In this way, I believe I have accomplished a little bit of something because I have a way of holding myself with others. I share this process because I feel it's my purpose. I share it because it's my way to serve, and in that I find my joy. I know it's my purpose because of how regardless, how painful, how hard, how overwhelming it becomes, life just doesn't make sense if I do anything other. I am beyond grateful and proud that I am living a life that feels very mission accomplished to me indeed. Thank you.